Welcome to the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society's Sounds Like Edison with Lawrence Gibbs and Museum Director Rick Godley. Each episode, Lawrence Gibbs will choose a song from the Lincoln Parish Museum's Edison collection of records, share some historical facts and information, as well as play each record on the original 1912 Edison Phonograph in the parlor of the Lincoln Parish Museum. Now sit back and enjoy the sounds from our time machine, a 1912 Edison A-250 Model Phonograph. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Sounds Like Edison. I'm Rick Godley alongside Lawrence Gibbs. We're in the parlor of the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society, located 609 North Vienna Street in Ruston. The second Renaissance, and not so coincidentally, happens to be in the sesquicentennial of Lincoln Parish, the 150th anniversary. So things are starting to awaken, things are starting to come back to life. The second Renaissance. We had a successful Chautauqua speaker series, Lawrence, with Alan Tootin. Well attended.
Packed the place.
Packed the place. So we're open to your ideas as to how to make this Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society relevant in 2023. And one of the ways we're doing it is by using the treasures that time has left us, such as the 1912 Model A-250 Thomas Edison Phonograph. And I learn every week from you, Lawrence, every episode I should say, 250 stands for?
It cost $250 back in 1912, which is like $5,700 and something now.
Right. So it's an A-250, and we've been going through, Lawrence has been going through. Matter of fact, kudos to him, because when he discovered this gem upstairs, he took it upon himself to catalog, to clean, to get it organized, and taking this thing to a whole nother level. So you found 160 records in here?
Yes, right at 160, maybe 161, but and I think 158 of them are playable.
Wow.
It'll take a long time, folks.
So yeah, this is episode 8, and before we move on to the Charleston swing, I didn't bring my flapper gear, and I don't want to wear a flapper.
No.
What did the men wear during the Charleston? They weren't the zoot suits. That
came much later. I think they were just trim, tailored suits, from what I remember seeing.
Before we do
very
that,
stylish, though.
Very stylish. Before we do that, we want to give thanks to Billy Green. What a great show! If you haven't seen episode 7,
yes,
Mother McCree, very touching, poignant. And I was moved, you were moved, and I know he was moved.
He was very moved, and it was awesome, the whole thing, how much that meant to him, and he just brought all that history back, and it was a great time. I hope he gets to come back with us another time. Sure enough.
I'd love to have him back. All right, so we're going to swing, pun intended, into the Charleston episodes, not only this one, but we'll do one, episode 9 as well. What are we going to have? What are we going to hear?
Well, today is the Charleston show, number 1, I guess, is a fellow named Billy Wynn, who nobody knows from Adam anymore, and the Greenwich Village, it's hard to say, Greenwich Village Inn Orchestra. And of course, I'll go into about that place in a minute, but this was one of the high places of development in the arts during that time. It's where all of the fresh new progressives were coming in, all of the Yale students and things like that, and they all honed in on this one place in Greenwich Village. Billy Wynn was a studio player. He was a drummer, percussionist, director, and all of that, and he put together an orchestra and wanted to record for Edison. He did quite a few of these for Edison. This is the first one, Charleston Baby of Mine. Music by Dan Dougherty, who was a New York composer that was involved in this era and had been quickly forgotten shortly afterwards. You can't hardly find a thing on the internet that I can find about this man. But anyway, this is where Red Nichols, the great trumpeter, comes in to how important he was to this era. He was only 18 years old, but he had already become a virtuoso cornet player, pardon me. He always played the cornet. And but he was very an excellent player and kind of was the leader in many of this. He knew all of the greatest musicians in New York that played in the pit orchestras of all of the show places and show houses. And so he filled his orchestra with those people. This is before the days of what we know as the swing era, actually. It predates the swing era. The swing era is going to be discussed more in the next one. But during the I call it the transitory period here, because the American public was really wanting to become involved in dancing, the latest craze and all of that. Somewhere around 1920, you had this develop. It was in part of one of the, I was going to say, it was part of a Broadway show called Running Wild, which was a great jazz hit during that time, and it became a national craze at that moment in 1923 with the Broadway show Running Wild. And nobody had ever seen the dancing like this, the steps in front of the, everybody's seen the Charleston online, I'm sure, and where they cross the legs and all that kind of cool stuff. It was unbelievable for the modern audience during that time. So it was the coolest thing to do, and everybody wanted it. And so everybody was recording songs. Some of them were just thrown together at the last minute. This is, I believe, I've heard quite a few of them, and this is, to me, my favorite. I think it has the most direct, to the point, to help dancers dance the Charleston dance. It was really almost like a song made for, I guess, Charleston Baby of Mine. What a great title. It actually has words by Bernie Grossman, but nobody ever sings them. Billy Wynn was just simply the leader drummer on this in this orchestra. It was only about, I think it was only 10 pieces. Nope, it's 8 pieces. It was a small orchestra. Of course, the studios in that Edison thing were not any bigger than this room, I don't think. So you couldn't get a lot of people in there at that time. But Red Nichols went and got the people that he thought could do this, and I don't need the only name that I can see is one of the saxophonists is Arnold Brillhart, who was renowned for making all of the mouthpieces for the saxophone sections, or many of them, during those early years. So this is an instrumental only. It is take 3. It took 3 takes to get this correct, and we got a big kick out of last week, the man coming in there and singing those Irish songs, and Edison said, "Done." Right. One time only. That didn't happen every time. But things to listen for when I'll play it here in a second, but it is a straightforward Dixieland group, very much like the Dixieland in Chicago at the time. That's where you had banjo and, if not tuba, bass sax, and I think there's bass sax on this. Usually 2 cornets. Red Nichols is the first cornet. He will be the one that does most of the lead work, the melody, presenting the melody of this tune. So it's not anything, it's not world-shattering, but you can tell that they were going to be able to do a good job on the Charleston when playing this song. So you'll listen for the trumpet, and then a unique instrument of the time, the C melody saxophone, which was a saxophone a little bit shorter than the tenor sax that Coleman Hawkins and people like that played. And it was in the key of C, so people used it at church because they could play sitting next to a piano or whatever. They could play the hymns and all of that and not have to transpose the music. Unfortunately, it had almost too mellow a sound. It didn't have a lot of personality. But it was it was a saxophone that played well at this time. But you'll listen for Red Nickel solos, and notice for the starts and stop, what they call stop time, which is bop, 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 that kind of thing where there's a syncopation and nothing else going on. And so they use that as part of the dance step. So, are you ready to hear?
Sure.
All right.
Keep in mind, this came out in 1925, right in the middle of the Roaring '20s. This is Sounds Like Edison, episode number 8, The Charleston Show, and we're going to hear Charleston, Baby O' Mine.
There we go.
There you have it, Charleston, Baby O' Mine, from the parlor of the Lincoln Parish Museum, 609 North, Vienna in Ruston. Rick Godley alongside Lawrence Gibbs. 1925, the Roaring '20s, literally, when that song came out, and you could sense the shift of some of the songs that we played earlier in the Sounds Like Edison. That now we're going up tempo.
Right.
And
I thought we needed some change of pace we had done the beautiful songs, we'd done the Irish songs, but also what was going on was the beginning of this Roaring Twenties music.
And I think last time, for the last episode with Billy here in the Mother McCree, episode 7, we sampled this, and I call this the time machine. And literally, Lawrence, when somebody comes to the museum and we play this, it truly transports them back to another time and place, as it should. But what we were talking about last time with Billy is the clarity of this particular, I guess, record.
Disc.
Disc.
Diamond disc.
It's just so clear, and it's amazing.
For 100-year-old, almost 100 years between the time it was pressed and we're listening now. It's kind of amazing. First of all, to find a collection like this that just needed to be cleaned up, that was taken care of during its use, let's say, when it was active. It can be active again. And
it is active again.
It's very much active. And like I just realized that there was not a bass sax on this. It was actually a tuba that they used for the bass.
One thing I noticed is Frank Farrell on the piano.
Yes.
You can hear a piano pretty much, if they want it to be, front and center. He was not front and center, but when it was his time to play, we heard it.
We heard it. And they didn't have knobs. That was all acoustic cones. And they had the cones going right down to his keyboard, and he had to play pretty hard to get that to be seen.
Well, let me ask you this, being a conductor, as Lawrence is, of the Ruston Band over the years, they're recording this in the Edison studio in 1925 in a room probably not as big as the parlor here as the museum. Did they have a conductor, or who was leading that?
It varied. Most of the time in these small groups, they did not. They had just worked it all out before. They knew that they had to go have rehearsals, so when they walked into the studio, they didn't take too much of Edison's time, because he was a stickler about that. And he really wanted everybody to do things in at least 3 takes, and that was it. And whatever you got, you took the best one, and bye-bye. And so
there may be truth to the rumor that underneath every chair in the room was a trapdoor. So if it didn't happen on the 3rd take, no.
But anyway, it is a excellent example of. By the way, it was 4 minutes and 3 seconds long, which was. You couldn't do that on a normal shellac 78, like a Columbia or a Victor during that time. And that's one of the things that Edison was trying to show people, that it would allow people to improvise more. He could go up to 5 minutes on those discs. And many times he did, especially on the classical stuff.
I'm dating myself, or I'm revealing my ignorance. 1925, yes, radio was out there, but not maybe as prolific.
No. It was just.
And so, how would people hear this music? It would be on a radio station for sure, or over the radio. But I would venture to say there was not a radio in every home at that time.
Oh no, it was still too new. And to hear this, they had to have one of these machines. Now, yes, you had the Victrolas and all of that, and some of these guys would go, and they'd probably hit up Edison first, and then they went out and realized that, well, not everybody has one of these things, because these were much more expensive than the traditional Victrolas or Victor machines. And he felt like this was truly a clearer sound, and at that time he felt that should be the deciding factor, not if it was just cheap. And so I'm just amazed at the quality that he could get out of totally acoustic. There's not electricity anywhere involved in this.
Right.
It's just
no engineering, no mixing. It's live, pressed on
whatever this stuff was, and I can't even come up with it wasn't rubber. It was some kind of long term that I can't even pronounce. But it was something that they would spray on or whatever, and this disc would be allowed to cool, and then boom, they'd come pressing that stuff in there, those grooves. And so it's amazing that you get to hear it 100 years later almost. Starting in 2 years, we'll be at 2025.
2025. Well, there you have it. Episode number 8, Sounds Like Edison. This is part 1 of the Charleston show. We just heard Charleston, Baby O' Mine. Bernie Grossman, Danny Doherty, Lawrence Gibbs, Rick Godley. If you would be so kind to like the episode, and also subscribe to the channel, because we're going to create more content, not only for Sounds Like Edison, but episodes from the museum, Lincoln Parish Museum, here and during our sesquicentennial. So we're going to grow the channel as we grow the awareness of the museum, all with your help. And how can you help the most? By telling others about this place. Friend us up, and then follow on Facebook as well, and bring any creative ideas that you have, and let's create a remarkable future. Any other closing?
That's it. That covers everything.
That covers everything for now. So we thank you for your time for this edition of Sounds Like Edison.
Thank you for watching the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society's Sounds Like Edison with Lawrence Gibbs and Museum Director Rick Godley. Keep in mind, we're a nonprofit organization, and we welcome your ideas, suggestions, as well as financial support to sustain our efforts to create a remarkable future as we embark on our second renaissance. Our address is 609 North Vienna Street, Ruston, Louisiana, 71270. Kindly follow us on Facebook to keep connected for future events, exhibits, and educational opportunities about Lincoln Parish. Sounds Like Edison is a Godley Works production.